Hi, my name is Sonya. This is chapter 4 from Cosmic Harmony Unveiled, a series called The Unfucking of Sonya. This is called Coma, Vegetable Cripple Addict, the man who taught me unconditional love. I appreciate any likes, shares, subscribing to my channel. That really helps me a lot. Also, I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. If you want to read my writings, you can go to Tumblr, or you can sign up for my Patreon account, which has early access and some other stuff. You can subscribe. The links are down below. Also, if you want to donate to keep the channel going, that link's down below, as well as a YouTube video that I talk about in this video. So what was growing up with my dad like? Well, it was like, there's different parts of it, but it was a lot like growing up with a big kid that could drive for the most part and spend money. He was like a big kid, and I think that he had more fun with the kids than he did with adults. At least that's how he made it feel for us. He's always taking us camping and fishing, and he would take us to the courthouse, which was not the actual courthouse. It was a place. It was had a gym and swimming pool and all that stuff. He would take like extra kids every time and say they were his. Remember, we babysat these Asian kids, and he said that they were his. And would get all of us in, take us there. And then, he would take us out to pizza afterwards, even though we didn't have any money. And I'd be like, Dad, you're going to bounce a check. And he'd be like, it's fine. And take us anyway. But he would do things like plays with us. And he was always making us laugh our asses off. But my dad, he wasn't really a rule follower, and he always encouraged us that we could do anything that we wanted to. I remember I was having an argument with him once when I was little, saying that, no, you can't do anything you want to, and he was like, yes, you can. And I was like, no, you can't. He's like, yeah, you can. I was like, you can't eat your cigarettes. And so he was sitting in his chair smoking a cigarette. He ate it with it lit. And so then the next thing to entertain my friends was to bring them over and watch my dad eat lit cigarettes, and he would do it. But anyway, his addiction, like, where did that come from? How was that? When my mom married him, he drank, but she didn't know he had a problem with it, because she said that he would drink a lot, but never ever really seemed drunk. He never acted drunk. And she didn't know he had any kind of problem with it until he tried to quit, because it was really hard for him to quit. But he did end up quitting. One of the things about my dad is that he was a pretty spiritual person, even if he didn't follow a bunch of rules. But he was Mormon, LDS. He didn't really go to church, but when he was in high school, he did seminary because he loved learning about that stuff. And when they had me, my dad told my mom that he wanted us to be raised Mormon or LDS, and my mom didn't have anything to do with the Mormon or LDS church. And so they decided to start going to church. And that's when my mom became like active and everything. And he did quit, and when I was 5, we ended up getting sealed in the LDS temple, which was really actually neat. I can remember it and everything. The only part I remember not liking is waiting for my parents while they got their endowments in the little playroom. I was bored to death. But when I was 7, we were at my grandma's house for the 4th of July. And that morning on the 4th of July, me and my cousin were going to go ride our bikes. And my mom asked me, she's like, have you seen your dad anywhere? And I was like, no. And I didn't really think anything of it, but now I do. I'm like, he's been gone all night. Nobody knows where he's at. And so me and my cousin took off on our bikes, and when we came back, my dad was being wheeled out to an ambulance, and he was unconscious, and there was puke all over his clothes, and didn't know what happened. But I was the oldest of 5 kids at the time. My sister wasn't born yet. And they took my dad to the hospital, and I think he got life flighted. I can't remember. But me and my brothers and sisters went and stayed with my cousins for a week, and then we stayed at my other grandma's for a week. And during that time, what had actually happened was that my dad had a stroke at the age of 31 the night before in my grandma's backyard while he was laying on one of those bench swings. And he was laying sideways, so when he had the stroke and went into a coma, he was in a coma for 4 days. His one leg crushed the other leg's sciatic nerve. And while he was in the coma, the doctors all told my mom that he was going to die. He wasn't going to live. And then my dad ended up living. Then they told my mom that he would be a vegetable the rest of his life. Like, he wouldn't be able to move or talk or do any of that stuff. And he came out of it and started like talking and everything, and he had to relearn how to do everything. Like, he said that it was so weird because his brain knew where to put the peg the peg in the hole, but like he couldn't move his arms, like they didn't do what he wanted him to do. But he ended up not being a vegetable. He was able to regain that ability. But then because of his crushed sciatic nerve in his leg, the doctors said he would never walk again. And he was in a wheelchair for a while, but my dad is a really stubborn person, and he taught himself how to walk. And so he walked again. But they also said that because of the damage that was done in his leg, it would basically feel like his leg was on fire for the rest of his life, like your leg is on fire. And so they put him on pain pills. And he was going to have to be on them for the rest of his life, is what they told him. So my dad spent a lot of his adult life trying to get rid of the pain, escape the pain. And my mom said that he told her that, you know, he used to pray that he would just die just so he could be out of pain. And, you know, he already had like a tendency towards addiction with like the alcohol and everything. And, but he used pain pills and alcohol and just to try and get out of the pain. And it caused a lot of problems because he couldn't hold a job. And my mom was always stressed out about money. And he would be so high and so drunk that, not like, he couldn't function, like he couldn't walk. He used to take me on drives all the time, and I would steer home because he couldn't drive, and I was only like 12. And it was so bad that, like, he would hurt himself to go to the doctor's office. Like, my mom, she kept a track of it, and I looked at one of the years. The longest my dad ever went without going to a doctor was 3 days in that year. And the most doctors he went to in one day was 6. And they weren't able to track it like they can track it now with the prescriptions and stuff. And so, he would end up doing things like hurting himself to be able to go to the doctor. Like, I remember one time, he broke his arm, and he took me with him. And we went to a doctor. He got a cast, he got a prescription, and then he got in the car. He took off the cast. He went to another doctor, got a cast, got a prescription. And he did that 6 times in the same day. And by the time we were driving home, because it was all day, he bought me pizza and lottery tickets while I was with him. But I had to steer home because he was so high that he couldn't drive. And I remember, we called the ambulance once because he was unconscious in the bathroom. They tried patches on him, like morphine patches, because he would take too many pills. But they found him unconscious in the bathroom with 3 of the morphine patches on him. Because he was only supposed to have 1. But anyway, and it was scary, like not knowing, what my dad was gonna do. But he was never a mean or scary, high or drunk person. But my mom would freak out really bad, like, at him. And so I spent a lot of time trying to help him hide. Like, and I tried to avoid my mom because I didn't want to, because I didn't like lying. But, he would go for a drive and be like, don't tell your mom this, don't tell your mom that, don't tell your mom we went and applied for jobs. And stuff like, I don't know, I just remember him, like, being totally out of his mind, and my mom yelling at him to go to bed and get in bed and freaking out because she had to wake up in the morning and do daycare, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning and we were still up because she was, yelling at him, and it was really scary, like, honestly. And he was in rehab 3 different times, and he would be good for a little bit and then come back. And he went and stayed at my grandma's house once and came back. But honestly, like, I hated it worse when he was gone than when he was there. But I mean, that's just like the addiction part. But my dad's whole, besides getting high and being drunk, he just wanted to have fun all the time. And and we were broke because he spent all the money, like all of it, on stuff, and we couldn't pay for our house or clothes. Or I wore 3 shirts in 6th grade, and I decided I needed to earn my own money. But one day when I was 16, he just decided to quit everything, and not completely, because he couldn't quit completely because of because the pain he was in. But he decided to only go to the VA doctor and only take the prescriptions that they gave him. And he would take them all within 3 days every month. But he only took those ones. And he could quit drinking. He didn't drink anymore. And up until he died, that was kind of his little routine. But it was much more like mellow. There was no scariness about it, I guess. But anyway, so that was, kind of how the addiction part was. But so my dad, the reason why he was so inspirational to me in my life was because he believed in me, and it caused me to believe in myself. And it didn't matter what I did either. I mean, me and my brother Keith, we pissed our dad off more than anyone. We're really the only ones that ever got, like, our asses kicked. But everyone else got little tiny spankings, But anyway, but it didn't matter, like, seriously, to me in any way. It didn't, because my dad, he believed in me, and, like, no matter what I did, I was always, like, the greatest in his eyes. I think there was only one time where I felt like he was disappointed in me, and he actually didn't say anything to me, and that's why I felt like he was disappointed in me. And it was because when I was 17, I stole their car and picked up my boyfriend who broke up with me, but then wanted me to come pick him up, and we were going to run away. So we ran away to Oklahoma with my mom and dad's car and bummed money the whole way to get there. And when I got back a week later, yeah. And when I got back a week later, I gave him back his car key, and then they had replaced my car key, because I took their car because I couldn't find my car key, and gave it to me, and I told them I was going to Boise the next day. And I was only 17, and I did, but that morning he didn't say anything to me. He looked at me and didn't say anything, and I could just tell. But anyway, but my dad, like, he made me, what he evoked in me was that he made me want to be a better person. Him not saying anything to me made me feel like, why did I do that to my dad? Right? And in every way, like, when I did eventually move back in with my parents for like 6 months when I was 17. And I had a boyfriend who was 22. But anyway, I used to go over to his house after I was done closing, and, and I would come home at 5 o'clock in the morning. My dad would be up having coffee and cookies. He'd be like, hey, good morning. Like, just happy knowing that I was out at my boyfriend's house all night, But, like, he seriously, like, inspired me to be a better person. That's what made me want to change, was how he treated me like that. And when I would get excited about learning something or wanting to do something, he always, like, encouraged it. He helped me find information. He helped me find ways to do it. He spent time with me like I was an adult. Like, he would like, one of the things that I used to do with him a lot is, well, he would want to go for a drive, which usually was to get alcohol or drugs, and I knew that, but Um, he would take me with him on his drive. And even though, like, yeah, he was gonna get high or drunk, like, I mean, I don't know. I liked going with him because I liked hanging out with him until he was high or drunk. but I liked talking to him, and like he just always, I always felt loved by my dad. I never felt criticized. I never felt looked down upon. I never felt, I felt like I was enough of a person, like I didn't have to change myself. But anyways, so when he died, I was of course devastated. But he was one of those people where like you just never thought he was going to die, because there were so many times he should have died and never died. And so, but something weird kind of happened. I have felt a little bit regret for this, but not really. Like, it wasn't something that stuck with me. But like, the Christmas Day, I went over to my mom's house, and I was over there, and there was just like so many people there, and we're opening presents. And I wanted to go to my dad's at a certain time, and it was just like, we kept doing stuff, kept having to stay for this, stay for that. And it started getting so late, and I was tired from doing Christmas at my own house at night and in the morning. And so I finally went to my dad's, but I felt bad because I wanted to spend more time with him. And I was like, Dad, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm going to go home, but I'll come back and hang out with you tomorrow. Well, he had a heart attack that night, and he died. He did have a quadruple bypass surgery, but, you know, he ended up dying the next day. But he had flatlined at like 5 o'clock in the morning, was in the hospital, and everyone was calling me all night long. And I had turned my phone off because I was tired and I didn't want to hear the phone ring. And I woke up at around 5 o'clock in the morning because something crashed in my room. And I didn't see any evidence of anything crashing, but I woke up to crashing in my room. And I jumped out of bed and turned on the light because I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, you know, freaking out, feeling, you know. And there was nothing, and I like turned to my phone, and I had like, I don't know how many missed calls, saying my dad was in the hospital, had a heart attack, had to have a quadruple bypass surgery. And anyway, and you know, we were at the hospital like all day pretty much, and he never came to. And yeah. And so anyway, my stepmom, Annette, she knew how close I was to my dad. And I was actually really close to her too, because she was always just so loving and so good to my dad. Like I felt like she treated my dad how he treated me. That's how I felt about her. And anyway, like a couple weeks before my dad died, I had told him that I left the Mormon church and that I joined the Baha'i faith at the time. And my mom was very disapproving. And one of the things that the Baha'is had as a rule was that, you know, to get married, you had to have like consent from your parents. I'm not Baha'i anymore, but I had told my mom I left the church and that about that rule, and I had a boyfriend at the time, and we weren't talking about getting married or anything, but did I want to marry him? Yeah, at the time. But anyway, my mom said that she would never give consent just because she didn't like it, and like at the time that like devastated me. And I called up my dad to tell him, because I was like so devastated about my mom, what she had said. And my dad didn't care. My dad was fully believed in the Mormon faith. And what he said to me was that it didn't matter what the fuck anyone else thought about what I believed about God and religion. He said that my belief about God and religion is between me and God and nobody else. And that he loved me just the same. He would definitely give his consent for anyone I wanted to marry. And my stepmom also said basically the same thing. They both talked to me. They both said the same thing. They both, you know, told me they loved me and that it was okay and not to listen to anyone else or anything that my mom said, basically. But it meant a lot to me at the time because I was so upset. You know, I was crying with like snot hanging down on my chest and stuff, and because everything was always the end of the world for me, you know. Well, a lot of times. But anyway, so that was one of my last interactions with my dad. And anyway, so when he died, my stepmom had asked me if I would do his life sketch because she knew how close we were, because me and my dad were super close. Like when I wanted to talk to someone, I would just go and sit in my dad's room and talk to my dad about like the stuff that I loved. I mean, I studied religion and spirituality and philosophy and physics, quantum physics, stuff like that. Like that's the stuff I wanted to talk about. And my dad would talk to me about it and he understood it. And because he was freaking genius. He actually had an IQ test. He was a genius IQ. But anyway, he was really smart. And so whenever I felt like talking about anything weird, unusual to a lot of people, I'd go talk to my dad. And he would always show me all this weird shit. I mean, like Bigfoots, UFOs. We used to find UFOs together. And yes, we really found UFOs. And, you know, stuff like that. And auras. My dad, he was born seeing auras, actually. So was my brother. But anyway, the first time I ever saw like energy, I was 14 or 15. I was reading a aura book on how to see auras, and I was practicing, and I started seeing like these glowing bluish white dots popping all over the place, and like just jumping all around, and I was like, what the I could see it around my hand, and then I could see it everywhere. And I ran to tell my dad, and he's like, oh yeah, I see that all the time. And the next week I was watching a documentary on ball lightning, and they showed the inside of a lightning bolt, and that's what it looks like. And I can still see it to this day anytime I want to. If If I don't want to, it's like I don't pay attention to it. But anyway, so I was like, so anyway, she wanted me to do this life sketch, and I was like, yes. And like, I got really into it. I was like, my dad did so much for me, like, in my life, and I was like, this is like my time to show other people like who my dad was and what it meant to me. And like, I wanted my dad to, like, it's me speaking, but speak through me. It was a kind of hard to explain the feeling. But so like, I wrote it down first because like I said, I've always had a hard time saying what I'm thinking without writing it down first. I didn't write any of this down though. But anyway, so I ended up doing the life sketch, but before I did it, I like went and found a room. It was actually the stage in the church where the funeral was, and I said a prayer for my dad to be there and to speak through me. And like, it's like I could feel a very strong sensation of like, his presence, I guess. And I was way nervous about speaking in front of all those people, because there was tons of people that showed up for his funeral, because I wasn't the only one that like felt that way around him. That's how he was with people. You know, it was a different dynamic, I think, with my mom because of, you know, the drug addiction and alcohol addiction and the lying and then taking the money, stuff like that, you know. But a lot of people showed up. And so, but I had to pray for that because I felt like it wasn't something I could just do on my own, I guess, with my own insecurities and my ego and everything. So I really tried to stay in tune and listen during that. And that was like, I don't know, something about being able to do that and see all that and feel all that and realize all that. Like, I don't ever feel like my dad's not with me. So like, when people do talk about missing someone and like, I don't ever feel sad about it. I feel, I can like cry, but it's because it's like I'm so grateful. And one of the, you know, one of the people that I often talk about that does feel sad is my sister, but she was really young when he died, and so she didn't. And my parents were divorced. She didn't have the same experiences that I did. I mean, like, not only is she, you know, she didn't have the same experiences, but she's like 11 years younger than me. So she really had it different than I did. And, but she misses him a lot. And I was doing like a tarot reading for her because last summer, and I was doing a tarot reading for her, and during the tarot reading, I all of a sudden like felt like this huge rush of like energy in my body, and I blacked out. Like I blacked out because I felt my dad tell me, like, it was like my dad told me that what I felt, if I were to put it in words, was my dad tell me that my dad is watching her and with her. And like, so that's what I told her. And it was super intense, but it was really, really awesome. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share that about my dad, and I will have more stories in my stories about him and my experiences with him. But he is one of those people that I know there's a lot of people that look at people who are like addicted to drugs or addicted to alcohol or have, you know, things like that, and they judge them like they're not good people. And I just don't think it's right. Like, you never know a person or like what kind of impact they have on others. And so I just think it's, you know, better not to judge. But I just wanted to share how like my experience with him really made me it's like all of the positive that comes out of me. I feel like a lot of it is because of my experiences with him and growing up with him. And so, yeah, just keep that in mind when maybe there's someone that doesn't do something that you agree with or like. You just never know. But anyway, I love him, and I'm glad that he was a part of my life and I got to experience everything I did with him. So, and I'm not trying to say that like all addicts are these amazing, loving people or anything like that, but the three people that I consider to be the best dads I've ever seen with their kids, all three of them have been addicts. My dad, my brother Giovanni, Stefan, all have been addicted. And my best friend, Rocky, has been addicted, and she's freaking amazing. She has like the biggest heart. And I think people would benefit if they watched that TED Talk, and I'll put it in the links down below. But we're all born with this energetic crap from our parents, and we pick up crap along the way, and we get more crap from the crap we create along the way. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. You know, my dad, he had a stroke, went into a coma on the 4th of July, and the next year, on the 4th of July, my mom was hospitalized for being sick. And then the next year, on the 4th of July, I got a rock to the face from a lawnmower and had to go get stitches in my chin. And I stepped up on a step. It would have hit my eye if I wouldn't have stepped up on that step. But every year we like started calling it the 4th of July curse, because every year on the 4th of July something horrible would happen to our someone in our family. And I think it was because of the like horrible feeling emotions that were sent out on the 4th of July that year when my dad had the stroke. Also, another a weird thing is, that was my dad's right leg. And my sister, Kiki, she started having right foot problems and had to have surgery on her right foot. Well, they bandaged her foot too tight and caused permanent nerve damage. And now, she's supposed to take the same medication that my dad was supposed to take for nerve damage in her right foot. And my other sister, she was pushing a car and shattered her right leg. And so now she's got nuts and bolts in there. And I have broken my right foot in 2 places and had plantar fasciitis and tarsal tunnel on my right foot and had to have 2 surgeries, and I have permanent nerve damage in there now too, but mine doesn't hurt, thankfully. But those are things that are not inherited, but it's obviously like a pattern. And it's like that everything being made of energy and everything being entangled. There's strong connections between family members, people we're related to, like biologically, and then also people that we're around all the time. Our energy becomes entangled with each other, and we can make a choice on how to change the feedback that we send back out into the universe. Systems will head towards chaos before they evolve and make a big change. And sometimes I look at my dad's addiction and everything that happened like that. If I look at our family history as like a system, like our genetics like a system, there's a lot of codependency and alcoholism and different things like that in our background. And I see my brothers and sisters and I as having the opportunity to change the feedback that we send out into the universe to create something different for our family line, I guess. And in a way, by changing the future energetic pattern that we send out, we also are healing the past. Because we might not have made the same choices if we didn't have the chaos from the past. For example, my dad's death, it's really what was the catalyst for one of my brothers, Henry, to change. He was a big pothead when he was younger. And when my dad died, he just quit everything and changed his whole life. He's, an active LDS person, but he went on a mission, he married a missionary, they have kids, he's an inventor, he's a photographer, just all these amazing things, and he's so creative, and he's such a good dad. He actually is a stay-at-home dad with his kids, and so that's one example. And I think the one that has the one that really, I think, has the capability of having a huge impact on, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like my dad, because is my brother Giovanni. I feel like he has it's like my dad's energetic imprint or something on him the most, because he reminds me so much of my dad, and he's super sensitive. He's always been super sensitive. Even my dad could see it, because when he was little, when he'd get in trouble, he didn't get punished, because he would be upset before he had any punishment about just upsetting someone. And anyways, but my dad, he had that stroke and had all that pain, and became addicted. Well, my brother Giovanni, he had all this shit just go down in his life. He got shit on so hard. And if you want to talk about unfair life, his life was just everything shitty just kept happening to him. And he got hooked on drugs as a way to cope with his pain that way. And he got caught, and I'm glad for it, even though it was like everything happened to him in an unfair way. even getting caught. But I'm glad he did, because he's turned his entire life around. And him and his new girlfriend just had a baby, and he's clean, and he's doing good, really good in his life. And I'm so proud of him, because it's like he almost in a way kind of followed along the same path as my dad, getting addicted from all that pain that happened to him, but then was able to come out of it and change what the future's going to look like. And I feel like, if you want to, whatever you believe, if you believe that there's spirits or whatever, I feel like my dad is always with me. But I don't necessarily believe in, spirit, I guess, spirits or whatever, but it's just, I know he's with me. And I guess I don't really know, but you know what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, by him doing that, I feel like my dad sees that, and and it heals him in a way too. It's like it heals the energetic pattern of him. So when I say that I don't really miss my dad, it's because I'm not all sad he's not right here in physical form with me, because I feel like he's with me all the time. For instance, he died the day after Christmas. Some people get sad, but I don't. Christmas was my dad's favorite holiday, and he spoiled us. So we used to get woke up on Christmas Eve by Santa Claus in the middle of the night, and then we'd sneak out and get presents. But he just really made a big deal out of it. And so what I do is I use what he gave me in my own life, because there's a lot of things that he gave me, and having fun at Christmas is one of them. So there's no way I would be like, hey Dad, yeah, you taught me this, but I'm gonna be sad instead. Another thing is just a couple other examples is he when I was a personal trainer, when I became a personal trainer, it's like I had my dad in the back of my mind, because my dad's the one who taught me how to exercise since I was like a little tiny baby. and my dad, I tried to always be honest, and my dad taught me that by lying. I realized that that's really important for me, to be honest. And so I'm gonna take that lesson that I learned from him, almost in honor of him, take all those things that would make him smile, and that's what I'm gonna be here on earth, because he's with me, and it makes me feel connected to him by doing that. And so that's what I mean when I say I don't really miss him, because I just feel like he's with me when I do things. But yeah, that's all.